The West Bend Plan Commission meeting to order for May 4th, 2021. Note that we do have a quorum with Commissioner Schmidt excused and Commissioner Gannon absent. I would like to quickly note we have a new person here on our commission, Alderman Model, so thank you for joining us and stepping up. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And tonight we'll begin with approval of the minutes, the Plan Commission regular meeting minutes of April 7th.
Second.
Thank you, Newman and Starl. Any questions or corrections on that? Seeing none, all those in favor, so by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Go on to development proposals and zoning amendments. Number 1, ZPU-21-002, a public hearing at the 6 p.m. meeting for a request to allow for the construction of 2 additional single-family homes with the 2 existing homes on 208 and 210 North River Road. Tax key number 1119-131-0015 by Jason Rose of Lakeside Contracting. The applicant is Jason and the agent is the same. We'll start off with a presentation by Jim. Take it away.
Thank you. I'd like to take, since this item and the next item go hand in hand with the zoning and the site plan, I'll just brief the commission on both parts, and then we'll take separate action on that for the amendment and the site plan. So Lakeside Contractors has submitted a zoning amendment for a planned unit development for an existing single-family lot. Currently, the development consists of 2 single-family homes, and the developer is looking to construct 2 additional single-family homes on that parcel. The 0.77 acre parcel is zoned RS4 single-family residential, and the proposed density would be 4 units per acre, which is permitted under the code, which would allow up to 4.66 units per acre. The developer at this time owns the 2 existing homes and has represented that he intends to own the all 4 homes upon completion of the project. The parcel does not have street frontage to River Road, but does have an access through an easement via the city lands that does connect to River Road via the parking lot. All property owners within 200 feet were notified of the public hearing, and staff received no inquiries or comments pertaining to the development. So the site plan portion, again, the access is from River Road via the parking lot that exists out there for the parklands. It's noted that each building has a garage and parking available in front of each garage to meet the needs of the parking requirements. Paving of the shared driveway and the individual driveways of the new building would be required in accordance with the zoning code. A 30-foot wide sanitary sewer easement bisects this development, and the sanitary sewer for this development will be obtained from that interceptor and will require the connections to be made in the manholes. A private well does exist on the property right now, serving the 2 homes. This private well would also serve the 2 new homes that would be constructed. There is water main that does exist in North River Road, but at this time, the water main is not active at all time due to the lack of water usage during the winter months. So future upgrades are needed for that water main. So as soon as those upgrades are made and the water service availability would be available year-round to the property, staff would require that, or ask that the development be required to connect to city sewer upon the approval of the, or I should say, of the availability of the water year-round. And this would also include any kind of fire protection requirements that we would need for that development. Stormwater management plan has been submitted to the engineering department and is currently under review. The grades have been designed to basically drain the site to the stormwater pond that will be located on the north end of the site. The architectural building elevations for the buildings include dimensional shingles for each building. And then one building will be a gray colored vinyl siding, and the other building would be a clay or beige colored siding. Just as a side note, on some miscellaneous parts of the development, we will need some technical corrections to the site plan to address some technical corrections that we do have for the site. And then also as a part of the agreement, or as a part of the approval, a developer's agreement would be needed to outline the water connections, sanitary sewer access, and maintenance within that development. So staff would recommend approval with the conditions listed in the site plan portion and also in the PUD portion.
Thanks so much. So with that, we'll open up the public hearing. If anybody from the public would like to speak on this item, feel free to come on up. Otherwise, we're looking for a motion to end the public hearing.
Second.
Thank you, Dolnick and Model. All those in favor of ending the public hearing, signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, and I believe we're just looking for a recommendation to council on that one. Thank you, Fleischman Starl. Any questions for Jim? Seeing none, all those in favor, signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. And we'll move on to B, site plans. And number 1, SP-21-005, site plan to construct 2 new single-family homes at 208-210 River Road by Jason Rose of Lakeside Contracting. We just heard about it. If you have any questions for Jim, feel free to reach out. Otherwise, we're just looking for approval by the Plan Commission. Max, go ahead.
Yes, I do have a question because there is a question with wetlands that is not resolved yet, and the applicant emailed us that they're reaching out to the DNR and they will let us know what comes out of this discussion. Because the DNR is who has the ability to make the decision on whether there needs to be a delineation to identify the wetlands, etc., to determine if any of the work is going to impact those wetlands. So the first thing I would like to add a condition that we need to have that DNR determination as part of the condition to the site plan. And the second question I have for Jim is if there is in fact wetlands that will be impacted by any work, I guess the applicant is going to need a permit from the DNR, but are they also going to need a permit from the Department of Development if they impact any wetlands? Maybe that's a question for Mark, I don't know.
Yeah, if there would be wetlands that would be impacted, we would end up having to do a conditional use permit, which would come back to the Plan Commission for consideration.
Okay. All right, well, we'll just wait to see what the DNR determination is then. Thank you.
So, Max, do you want to make the motion to approve with that DNR determination?
Yes, I would make a motion to approve, unless there are more questions or other.
I'm sorry, Alderman Dolnick?
Well, I had just right before the meeting had talked to Jim and the fire department. I happened to talk to Chief Kudek, and they've got a concern about the fact there is no hydrant that would be working here through the winter. And the other thing is the ability to get a truck through this, because I'm just trying to do a quick calculation. It looks like almost 200 feet perhaps to proposed building 1 from the intersection or from the asphalt driveway to where this development is, and that's quite a long way to lay hose. And so what's the fire department's position on this, and how do we address it? I mean, there's really no answer for the water, but as far as getting a truck in there.
Yeah, the fire department did make a comment about truck turnaround. I did not have a chance to talk to Fire Marshal Kenny or Aslan in regards to that turnaround. They didn't provide any information on what they need for a turnaround. So they just said they needed a turnaround. So I did have to follow up with the fire inspector in regards to that. As for the fire hydrant, that would be a condition of once the approval is. This really doesn't have any, situation doesn't change all that much in terms of the fire protection from what they have right now for the hydrant. But provisions would be made for a hydrant once the fire service, or I should say the water service, would be available year-round for that.
Yeah, I mean,
As part of the developer's agreement.
they're used to being in the, they have fire contracts out in the towns, and they're used to hauling water if they have to, if there's no hydrant, so that's okay. But it's only okay if they can at least get an engine, closer to, again, we always plan for the worst. God willing, nothing happens to proposed building 1, but if it were to happen, can they get an engine in there?
If I may, I had a chance to speak with the fire chief last night after council, and he understood the limitations of the site not having year-round water service, so the fire protection would be limited. And he did know that they would have to fight it as they do many of the town contract areas using a pumper truck. But because of the need for the pumper truck, he is expressing that the width of the driveway needs to be adequate. He didn't express any concerns regarding the turnaround to me. Doesn't mean that they weren't expressed previously, but the width of the drive needs to be, he asked that we make sure that the width of the drive is adequate to get the vehicles back there and in fairly quick order, because the pumper truck will obviously need to be making multiple trips for any incident.
So does that have to be another condition?
I was asking Jim, do you know what the width is cited in the plan set?
I believe they were showing. No, I believe they're showing 14 feet from what I'm seeing on the drawing. So we had 14 feet there in width for the driveway.
Do you know what the minimum requirement that they typically require is?
I honestly do not know. They never expressed minimums that we would need.
Max, any history with that?
With the fire trucks?
Yes.
No, unfortunately, I don't, but for a site, obviously, the roads, traffic lanes are, 12 feet on the higher speed roads. So I would think, I have no idea with the fire apparatus.
Yeah, I know on public roads, they ask for a 20-foot minimum width so that they can get bi-directional traffic. If a car is stopped on one side, they can still get around it. But I don't have the knowledge for the minimum width on a private drive such as this, but I would suggest that the commission might consider that as a condition for the approval, subject to the fire department's review.
I believe the contractors here. Did you have a question or comment?
I was just going to comment.
If you don't mind coming up to the mic and introducing yourself.
My name is Jason with Lakeside Contracting. The concerns with the wetlands have been addressed. We are in the process of redrawing it so that we're not in the wetlands. So none of the work is being taken place in those alleged wetlands. That was the only comment I had.
Okay, thank you. So there will be a plan, so you're moving the work outside of the wetland map?
Correct.
On the DNR? Yeah,
The
okay.
retention area is being shifted outside of it, and the home would have a partial exposure on the one side, so none of the
Okay, that's
fill
good.
would be.
Then we'll wait for the revised plans and look at that. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Commissioner Sarl?
What's the drive, you know anything about that for the fire department?
Just whatever we have on the preliminary drawings here, 14 feet, I believe, but
Any other questions from the commission? Otherwise, we are looking for a motion to approve, and we can add those conditions that we discussed. Thank you. And motion second by Dolnick and Newman. Any other comments? Seeing none, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Thanks for coming out.
Thank you.
And move on to number 2, SP-21-009, a public hearing at 6 p.m. meeting for the site plan to replace the existing sign with an electric message center sign at 1225 Sylvan Way by Decorah Elementary School. The applicant is Decorah. The agent is Poblaki Sign. Jim.
Thank you. This site plan proposal is for an electronic message center for the Decorah School. The existing sign is located approximately 56 feet or 58 feet north of the school entrance and approximately 18 and a half feet east of Sullivan Way. Back in November of 1998, staff originally approved the sign with a manual changeable message board. So the school would like to update this sign to a electronic message center in replacing this manual message center. The zoning code requires an electronic message center to be that is located within 100 feet of a residentially zoned district to be reviewed by the Plan Commission after a public hearing has been held. The purpose of this is to listen to any comments or concerns pertaining to the sign within the proximity of that residential area. So Decorah School is requesting to have a 12 square foot EMC center on their sign. This EMC does comply with the size requirements as prescribed in the zoning code. The EMC was also designed to have an automatic dimming feature to it based on the ambient light to help reduce any kind of glare at night. In addition to the EMC center, there's an additional 6.25 square foot internally lit sign for the top, showing the school emblem for that sign. So the total sign is only 32.81 square feet, which complies with our zoning code. All property owners within 200 feet of the sign were notified. Staff has not received any comments or concerns or calls in regards to the proposal. Staff would recommend approval of the sign with the requirement that the auto dimming feature be incorporated to reduce any kind of glare.
Sounds great. So I will open up a public hearing. If anybody from the public would like to speak on this item, feel free to come on up. Otherwise, we're looking for a motion to end the public hearing.
Second.
Thank you, Fleischman and Starl. All those in favor of ending the public hearing, so by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Any other questions from the commission for Jim? Seeing none, all those in favor of approving, so by saying aye. Oh, I'm sorry, I need a motion first. I was getting all excited. Can I have a motion on that?
Motion approved.
Thank you. We'll just take Monel and Fleischman. Now, all those in favor, signify by saying aye, please.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, and that passes. All right, and congrats to Decorah. And we'll move on to number 3, SP-21-007, site plan for the addition of a new deck and pergola to the north and east sides of the existing building at 301 through 303 West Water Street by Sue Millen of Volunteer Center of Washington County. The applicant is Sue Millen of the Volunteer Center, and the agent is Adam Hurdle of American Architectural Group. Jim.
Thank you. This site plan is for a deck and pergola addition onto the hub building located at 301, 303 West Water. The property is zoned MXD. The proposal includes some site revisions there. Access to the site, for the most part, will remain the same. Access on our auxiliary court will not be altered at all. There's a driveway on the far eastern side of the site that will be closed, and the pavement will be removed. Part of this driveway also encumbers the Eisenbahn Trail corridor, so this will be removed and then also restored with grass. The curb and gutter and part of the sidewalk for the western driveway on Water Street will be narrowed to help accommodate for this new deck. Stormwater management plan is approved for the development. and the drainage patterns will be maintained throughout the site. New landscaping will be provided along the north side of the deck and along the east side of the eastern sidewalk, connecting to the public sidewalk on Water Street. The architectural building elevations include or show that the deck will be made out of an 8-inch concrete masonry unit painted to match the building, and the deck will be approximately 2 foot 4 inches above the ground. A metal guardrail or railing will be a black railing will be provided that encloses the deck area. The pergola itself will be constructed out of stained pressure-treated lumber. The site plan also identifies new wall sconce lighting on the east and north side of the building, along with some ground level landscape lighting that would be attached to the concrete wall of the deck. 2 new sign locations are identified on the elevations on the east and west sides of the building, and the exact sign details have not been provided at this time, but prior to installation of any signs, sign permits would be required and need to be reviewed by staff. One caveat that we have with this, if this deck will be used in conjunction with the liquor license that exists out for the site, the appropriate approvals from the clerk's office will be needed prior to the use of the deck for the use of that liquor license. Staff would recommend approval of the site plan with the listed conditions.
Sounds great. I'll open up if there's any questions from the commission. Otherwise, we're just looking for a motion to approve the site plan.
Motion to approve.
Thank you, Model and Newman. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. And congrats to the Volunteer Center. It should look nice. And then we'll move on to our last item, C, discussion item number 1, discussion and possible recommendations regarding changing the requirements on the sign ordinance in single-family and two-family residential driveways for certificate of occupancy by the Department of Development in the city of West Bend. So we did have a brief conversation on this at our last meeting. Mark had brought up some ideas. We shared a little bit of ours. What you had in your packet is a few different chapters that all encompass those additions and corrections that were recommended. So Mark, I don't know if you have a little intro you want to give, or Jim. Okay, and then we can take it from there.
Sure. So, thank you, Mayor. This is a follow-up to essentially what we discussed at our last meeting. Staff went through portions of the sign code and also the urban design sections, and we also asked for the ability to modify a part of section 38, which is part of our parking requirements pertaining to driveways and approaches and the certificate of occupancies. So what we've presented in the packet is basically our edits that what the department feels would be appropriate for changing within that code. We're just asking the Plan Commission tonight to take a look at that. And if there's any modifications or if there's anything else that you'd like us to take a look at, we would do so. But if the commission feels that what staff has presented tonight is to be acceptable, what we would propose to do is set a public hearing for the June meeting to enact these changes that we're proposing for the various sections of the sign code and urban design, and then also the driveway section.
Sounds great. Thanks, Jim. I'll open it up to the commission if anybody has any questions or comments.
I guess.
Yep, go ahead.
The question, first of all, pertaining to driveways, and I know we talked about that last week, and so I drove around West Bend, and there was occupancy, a positive on 2 houses on Schlamer that just had a gravel driveway, cement, and now they just poured the cement now, and it opened up here a little bit. So, were people, they just had to get a special okay to do that, or whatever? We talked about that they're having trouble with contractors getting, final occupancy, but people have been doing it already, is that correct?
In the past, we've, and Jim, you can jump in here, but I believe we used other methods. We asked either for sureties to guarantee those improvements would be completed, or we granted conditional occupancies.
Correct.
But that has an impact of if the developer or the builder isn't responsible for putting the driveway in under his contract, and we're holding up, but he doesn't get final payment until he gets full occupancy for the dwelling. He's being held hostage by the owner's non-compliance with the code. So what we're looking for is a mechanism here to handle those seasonal issues. They can't construct, they can't pour concrete, they can't get the asphalts because the plants are closed during the winter months, where we can still allow and we can't withhold occupancy because of recent changes in the legislature. So we're looking for a mechanism to make it as basically a condition of the permit, but with an extension for the period to a specific time limit.
Great. Yep. Newman?
I have a question. Reasonable set of time. Who determines that time, and what if the homeowner has a different idea what a reasonable set of time is?
It would be predominantly determined by either the zoning administrator, which in that case is Jim acting for me, or it would be the building superintendent who's issuing the zoning permit for the development. And as what reasonable is, did we put in time periods in it, Jim?
The time periods that we put in was for, if they couldn't do I believe the improvements from, I think, October to April.
April is the time frame.
Right, that's where we had that consideration to allow the condition, a conditional approval. And typically what we've done, and that we looked at, we figured like a June 1 or a July 1 completion. By then, there should be no problems with getting that completed for that. I mean, if the commission feels that we should specify, completion times, I mean, we can look at that, but that was what we were thinking for reasonable, get it past the freeze thaws, so everything is, firmed up and that you can lay concrete and you can lay asphalt during those time periods.
I would point out they would have the entire off-season to arrange for that installation. So it's not like we're rushing them at the last moment to do it. They could be scheduling it, and they could be the first one in lines when the plants are opening.
I just think maybe that hard date would maybe assure that they book a contractor.
I'm a little leery of doing that simply because there are some Aprils, I mean, you work out in the field, you know what it's like. One April, you can be doing this in the first week. Other Aprils, you're lucky to get it by mid-May because of the rains, late thaws, late snowstorms, whatever. It's hard to pick a specific date. We've done it as practice. We usually give them about 2 months to get it done, but they know about it during that whole off season to complete the work. So they can schedule it, and we give them several months afterwards.
Anything else, Bernie? No? Okay. If I could jump to the signs, under the projecting signs part of the ordinance, you had you added the word temporary there before privilege. Can you explain why and what that does?
Correct. So the way the Chapter 12 is written, Chapter 12 actually gives the authority to the clerk to issue it's a temporary grant of privilege. So all that I added for there, the reason why the word temporary is in there is to be consistent with what we're talking about in Chapter 12 for granting that privilege or that permit to allow the overhanging sign into the right of way.
Okay, thanks. Any other comments? I know it was an exciting read through the ordinance.
I'm glad they put the new stuff in red. That helped.
Thank goodness. Well, I mean, my comments are I everything that was added or edited. I think that's in line with pretty much how we've been practicing as a commission anyway. So I appreciate us accepting how we've been doing things now, and codifying it. I think is going to make all of our lives a little bit easier. So What next steps do you need then? Just nothing from us tonight, just recommend to go to a public
Actually,
hearing? Or?
no, you're just directing us. If
Okay.
there's no changes to this, we will basically codify this. We'll bring it back. Again, you'll still have the annotated code
Yep.
as we did tonight, but we will also provide the ordinance
The draft ordinance for it, correct?
for it. We will publish for the public hearing, for public comment at the next meeting. And if there's nothing that you want to make changes to after the public hearing, we will ask you to approve that ordinance. And then once that is done, we bring it forward to council, hopefully within 2 weeks after the plan commission, and get this enacted. So within the next 6 weeks, basically, this would be if council approves it.
Sounds good. Well, if anybody in the commission has any wild or crazy ideas for signs, get them in. Otherwise, if there's no further comments or questions, having no further business for the Plan Commission, I'll adjourn by the call of the chair. Have a good night.